Good night. Welcome to Legalize this 30th day of November 2025. And tonight we have a quite interesting topic, navigating the internet, opportunities, online threats, legal exposure and protection. And we have with us Ruggles Ferguson KC, Inspector Francisca Noel, and we are expecting Mr. Jervis DaBreo to join us. He had a situation which unavoidably he cannot join immediately. Also, my usual co-host is unavailable tonight. In fact, I understand she may be in the air. So I'm here alone. But before we get into the subject matter for tonight, I just want to recognize the sponsors of this program, those who assist us in being here week in, week out, namely Jail Professional Solutions Inc., Jim FM carrying this program on FM radio out of Canada, and also Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, Cheetah. Okay, I understand we have some internet issues, so we'll just have to go straight into the program. So good night, Inspector.
Good evening, Mr. Layne. How are you?
I am fine. Casey, good night.
Hi, good night, and good night to your guest. I know one of the hardworking police officers, and I must say I admire how she has risen through the ranks. As I always say to her, I've had an opportunities probably to cross-examine her in court too, and take certain legal points with respect to the work that she is doing. And I can assure that she has handled herself quite competently. And to the best of my knowledge, ranks not only top among our local police officers, but is also outstanding in the region, recognized for area of skill. So I'm quite happy to be on with her, and also Jervis DaBreo. He's not on as yet, but I know he's very passionate about what he does. And in fact, we both have had opportunity to consult with each other on different things. And only recently, because of a hacking incident, I had opportunity to deal with him, and he handled again. He moved very quickly, very impressively, and had the situation under control. I was quite impressed. I didn't expect less from him, given my dealings with him before, but I know Jervis is very passionate, very knowledgeable, like Inspector Noel on their respective areas of work. So I hope he can join us before the program ends this evening, because I know he has a lot to offer on this subject.
Yes. So, Inspector, I guess the internet is really a new frontier, new opportunities, new challenges. Someone who was a police officer maybe 30 years ago would not have had anything in the nature of your work, the work that you do. Uh, I don't know if you can just tell us about your work uh, in the context of the opportunities that the internet offers for growth, for positive development. So I guess in your work, you will have to balance the fact that here is a system or a tool that has great possibilities, but from your side, you are also aware of the dangers and the threats. Of course, we had expected Jervis to speak, to lead in terms of what opportunities the internet offers, but I know you are equipped to lead us off on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Layne, for the opportunity to speak on this topic. And thank you very much, Casey, for admiring and more or less appreciating the work that we do as law enforcement. And of course, in the digital realm, as you highlighted over the years, and 30 years ago, no, absolutely, digital forensics or digital evidence, cybercrime was not a topic that we discussed widely. Uh, Not that the internet was non-existent. However, the internet for the uses of simple communication, or how it started with file transfer, has evolved over the years by leaps and bounds. And of course, you would appreciate the fact that with every development, there comes challenges. With the development of the internet and its wider use, there also becomes threats. And this is why law enforcement now today has a much more difficult task, I would say, in terms of fighting crime, because we are not just fighting crime on the ground in the physical, but we are fighting in the virtual. And over the years, as a police officer of just over 25 years, I am also very much amazed at how criminals can move so fast when it comes to developing on the tools that we use for normal everyday activities. As we are here, the internet has afforded us the opportunity to have this podcast live. And the criminals are also embarking on new ways of utilizing those opportunities for criminal gains. I want to, of course, narrow in on period and post-COVID, pre-COVID-19. We were all normal users of the internet. We conducted our transactions um, mostly utilizing information from online, communicating with families and friends and so forth. These were the basic activities that happened. However, COVID 19 allowed us to utilize those infrastructure that was in place at the time to now conduct more activities. And those activities I'm referring to banking, working remotely in the fullest sense, also more communication happening. School went online as well. And of course, more social activities involving worship, um, meetings, and so forth. So we did not prepare ourselves for that aspect. And I would say that a lot of the security incidents that we had populated during that time. And because we were utilizing only those, the basic infrastructure, then that gave the criminals an opportunity to propel ahead of us in order to use the technologies against us and of course increased in the severity, because what we have seen happening is not necessarily so much electronic crimes apart from ransomware, but we have crimes that were enabled by cyber means. And that's what makes it more severe, or the impact felt even much more, and the losses that comes from, especially the financial crimes, whether it's a business affected or it's individual, right, private person. And as law enforcement, yes, it is incumbent on us to use whatever means necessary or all means possible in order to be able to effectively and efficiently investigate those crimes so that persons can be relieved of, victims who have losses can have justice served in their behalf.
Let me just ask, when you draw that distinction between you draw the distinction between electronic crimes,
Okay.
yes, electronic crimes and crimes which are enabled by the development in IT.
Mhm.
If you could just give an example so that the viewers could be clear. What you would categorize as an electronic crime? You mentioned
Right.
ransomware.
Right. So electronic crimes are crimes that are initiated by a computer system and affects another computer system or a network, in a sense. And that is why I made reference to ransomware, because with ransomware, the computer system or repository or file or database is hijacked, for a better term, and it is by cyber means, or it is through another system that is enabled. Another is hacking, right? Where accounts are accessed or denied access for by means of a computer. The difference here is with the ransomware, you actually have to pay to have that system released or the network released or the files released in order for the crime to actually be considered as ransomware. Also, with denial of service, again, is initiated by a computer system against another network or group of networks. And of course, we have now not only one system, but we have bots, robots in a sense, utilized, that is many different systems coming together to form one, a coalition that would affect other computer systems. Where we have crimes being committed, however, with the cyber part of it, we're speaking about fraud. Fraud is crime that is traditional, but can be utilized or can be become severe with the use of a computer. And these are the scams that we speak of, whether it's romance scams, whether it's the phishing, where you're lured into giving off information to access accounts that would you would not otherwise want to give up willingly. And also under our Electronic Crimes Act, I guess we would get to speak on that much more later on, the sexually related crimes like child pornography and also violation of privacy. These are enabled by the use of computer systems as described in our legislation. So there's a clear distinction in who is affected. The victim in a electronic crime or cyber crime is a computer system. However, the victim in a cyber enabled crime would be an individual or business.
Why would somebody seek to attack a computer system?
For the purpose of where we see oftentimes um, assets would be buildings, assets would be your money in the bank, assets would be property. However, today, data is a big asset. And
Okay.
data stored on computer systems for many different reasons, like more or less a bargaining for business. It would be intellectual property. It can be also information about your trade secrets and so forth. For instance, if I have a specialty product and I'm offering that online, and we've seen in major breaches with companies that had um, intellectual property and so forth in the theater industry, having lost their access to the files or information about certain processes and so forth, it is a major loss. And also too, information about your customers. What is a big business today is the personal identifiable information or sensitive information on a person that can be used to create other identities that can be used for committing crimes as well as on conducting business. So
So in other
data
words, it's
is a major asset.
it's a capture data,
It's to
capture
capture
information,
data.
because
Yes,
all of the information is stored in the system, and if you can capture the system, you get a treasure trove of information and data.
that's right. And
Oh,
easily companies have been disabled through the loss of data. So we see how far and wide it can go. When
so
your data is
you can
compromised,
cripple a company also,
of course you can.
or cripple a competitor. Sometimes if it is a, a competitor organization that is doing it.
Right, correct,
Mhm.
correct. And competitors do not have to do it on their own, but we have cyber crime as a service. As you would offer consulting service to someone, or Mr. Ferguson offering legal service to someone, cybercrime is offered as a service widely for that purpose because data, of course, has that great value.
Mhm. So let me ask, have you encountered that kind of criminal activity targeted against people or businesses in Grenada?
In Grenada, yes, we have had incidents of on the financial front in terms of
Financial is
financial,
okay.
financial mostly, yes. And of course, there has been a few incidents of ransomware. This is financial generated as well because while you're disabled, you cannot earn, and yet you still have to pay to get your files released or the system released. So we've
Okay,
had
so
that
that
happen.
is like akin to let's say kidnapping. You you capture it and then you ask for money in order to release it. That's a correct understanding.
That is a perfect analogy here, where you
Okay.
have something of value and the monies that would actually be paid would be to release it. I want
Okay.
to note here also that while some companies may see it fit or wise to pay for the release of the pay the ransom for the release of the system, it is not always guaranteed that that system will be usable to them. Why? I say this on a premise that the system would be infected by means of malware, and that is computer software that is utilized to cause damage or harm to the computer system. It can be through a virus, or it can be through an employee that gave away their login credentials to a sensitive aspect of the system. Why I say that it is not guaranteed that it can be usable, there will still be malware in the system that would allow the bad actor, as we refer to them, to have control over that system after credentials or along with the credential of the person who initially got access. Other credentials can be also available on the dark web or on the web, accessible to other criminals for use.
So
While you
how should one react in face with that
right,
situation?
the best remedy, and I would say that every company must have a contingency plan in place, because it is not if an attack happens, but when it happens. And the best contingency is to have your backup, to have a plan that would be able to restore your company to normalcy without the use of that data which was compromised or lost. So that backup must be up to date, it must be working, it must be sufficient enough to be able to carry on normal business activities, right? While you may not have access to that data which was lost or now is compromised. So in essence, you do not need to, and it is advised that you do not pay the ransom, because you're actually furnishing further that criminal act. It may seem for some companies the best thing to do. It may work for some, and it would not work for some, because even in instances on an international, there was an incident in Trinidad as well, where a company paid and they still did not have access to the data. So the best plan is to have the contingency, the data backup, and of course be able to operate as soon as at least you recognize that you have had a breach and you are able to control that breach.
Okay, what other kinds of besides what you describe as electronic crimes, and then you also spoke about crimes which are enabled by the use of IT. In that second category, what typical situations we have?
We have the very common type of cyber enabled crime is
Okay,
fraud.
Mr. DaBreo is here with us
Mr.
now.
Davos on.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, he's got his camera and so will come on and against it. But you can just go on with it.
Okay, sure. Fraud is one of the major cyber enabled crime. And before we had stealing, yes, we've always had stealing. You would have persons having access to accounts, whether it's in a business, let's say for instance a safe or cash register, as we would call it, a safe as well. However, with the fraud, the system is now manipulated, whereby the funds, one, can be transferred without the knowledge of the account holder. Two, the funds are able to now be transferred faster and with multiple other destinations, with, I would say, the possibility of lower, the possibility of tracing would be lower because of the ability to transfer within accounts. And of course, we know that through internet banking, while we have the ability to do it as regular citizens, the criminals would also take advantage of that aspect. So fraud is one of
So
the
how do
major
you
crimes that has.
how do you transfer funds from somebody's account without their knowledge?
Right. One of the simpler ways is to have access to the account information And that again, we just spoke of the ransomware and compromised accounts.
Mhm.
Right. So that is one of the ways that persons can actually lose access to their account. If the account credentials, I'm speaking of the username and the password that is used to access that account, and we're speaking of online. If that is lost or it is compromised, part of it is known, then the bad actor can use that information to be able to withdraw from the account, transfer to their account, or transfer to another party, a third party.
Have we
In
had any cases of that
in
in
another
Kenya?
sense, right? So in another sense, we have the loss of cards, the normal debit cards that we use, the credit cards
Mhm.
that we use. This one is even easier because you can use the basic information that is on the card, the physical card itself, without having to verify that it is you using that card to be able to complete transactions or to withdraw and to transfer funds. So these what we consider to be the cyber enabled crimes, I think, um, and it is one of these crimes are the lower to detect,
The what?
actually lower to detect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. Yes. Yes. Because of the nature of it. Right. I spoke of also the being able to monitor the account is one of the ways that we can reduce that incidence. And persons having access to your card information or your banking information carelessly within hours and can be able to access the funds. Now, I've seen in cases here in Grenada where cards were used for purchases, not that persons knew how much money you had on the account, but that they actually tried it for any amount and realizing that there were funds on the account would even go further to even transfer or to make purchases thereafter. So this type of the cyber enabled crime, and why I say it is lower to detect because we are using our cards regularly and we may not always check on the balances or so forth. So one, as in earlier I alluded to funds or stealing being a crime from as long as we may know it, right? But over time, as the funds accumulate in small quantities, then it's able to have much more of a higher impact on the person, the victim in that case, whose card or their account details has been lost.
Mhm. Okay. Uh, I see you said
Before,
the
right, one of the crimes I want to speak of is business email compromise.
is which
And
one?
business email compromise.
Okay, good.
And that, yes, that affects companies. It, two actually prongs of it: the compromising of the email account and also the initiating of financial transactions by the bad actor through wire transfers or through invoices that are purported as real. With the business email compromise, and this affects companies that would, let's say, act on behalf of persons in terms of transactions and so forth. Once that email is compromised and the bad actor has access, now purporting to be the individual, the victim, initially the person who was seeking the services of that third party, a relationship is developed. And of course, with emails, once the email address is known, you're able to communicate without most times asking questions. Once the email thread or the history of the conversation is also known, then it's easy for that perpetrator to use the information before in order to lure the person into committing the activity of transferring funds without question or paying invoices that would otherwise be we consider bogus. And these two are incidents have occurred in Grenada of that nature. They may seem as they are not significant. However, in 2024, the EC3, which is the electronic crimes reporting platform that is internationally, has reported significant losses through business email compromise, which is wire transfers and invoices being paid on behalf of victims that would happen because an email address was compromised or taken over in that sense. So it's one of the significant ones that we have to look out for. And very easily, you develop a relationship, you do not check the address or you do not confirm with a call or another conversation, and that is how that type of crime is committed.
So let me just ask Casey, in a case as that, where a payment is made, and of course it is made through your account at the bank, who was to bear that loss? Would it be the bank or would it be the individual who owns the account?
Yes. Well, this is a very interesting and relevant question. I've actually seen two schools of thought on it, and it really, each case will turn on its own circumstances. But I know there was a recent Supreme Court decision in the United Kingdom that essentially said that the bank was not responsible in those particular circumstances. And I happen to know that only recently, and I'm speaking about within the last month, there was a particular case in the OECS where scammers were able to get a payment from the bank. Everything seemed very genuine. And by the time folks caught up on it, the payment was already made. And there was action taken against the bank for negligence. And based on that recent United Kingdom case, ultimately on trial day, there was a compromise on both parties, on the part of both parties, and the matter was settled. So it was not ultimately determined. But what I can say, based on legal authorities and at the highest level, though the United Kingdom, the Supreme Court is not necessarily binding on us as a Supreme Court decision, but the same judges who sit in the United Kingdom Supreme Court are the same judges who sit on the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. And that is, persuasive authority. But I would say that it would not be automatic because, as we know, negligence is based on the three concepts of duty, breach, and damage. One, a duty of care. On the part of the bank, there'll be a duty of care to ensure that monies are not removed from your account by unauthorized persons, and if that duty is breached, then they would be responsible. So it all depends on the fact situation. But what I can say based on current authority, is that not every situation where somebody loses money from his account that the bank would be held responsible. One will have to establish that the bank was negligent in all the circumstances. Because as the comment was said, if in every case the bank is responsible, that might bring the whole banking system crashing. Because in the OECS country of which I speak, and a fairly recent case too, it involved close to $300,000 that was lost from an account, and everything seemed above board. But as usual, what the scammers do is that they move fast. They move very quickly. So, for example, when you are called for bargains, you either take it now. You can't say, call me tomorrow, let me think about it. The bargain is no. You must disclose the necessary information now, or you lose the bargain. And people normally get caught by the sweetness of the deal. Take it now or leave it. And that's the basis of a lot of those issues now attracting criminal law attention. What I can say is that the whole landscape, Inspector hasn't touched on it as yet, but now we have moved to AI, artificial intelligence, and that is a major platform now that everyone is beginning to use. In fact, now Grenada is a bit behind, and hopefully they will catch up soon. But even when you're traveling, no, people who travel alone and who are not into the technology face some serious challenges, because even when you is no longer filling up physical immigration forms. And impressively, there are several Caribbean countries. Grenada seems late off the bat because they still use these physical immigration forms. But in several of the Caribbean countries, including St. Kitts, including St. Vincent and the Grenadines, right next door, is that you fill out your electronic form long before you land. And what happens is that you basically go through immigration, all things being equal, you are processed in a much quicker way. It avoids all these long lines waiting for extended periods to get through. So you have these liabilities arising, and what is happening with the development of technology, it is taking place much quicker, evolving much quicker than the law itself can keep up. And that's a major challenge. So, for example, you have since 2008, that's about 17 years ago, there was this, what is called the HIPCA project for Caribbean countries to enhance competitiveness, harmonize legislation, harmonize regulatory rules, harmonize policies that deal with transactions, e-transaction. And you had coming out of that a suite of legislation that different Caribbean countries were supposed to adopt. Some have adopted some of the legislation, including Grenada, but not all of it. Not all of it. I'm talking about that 2008 project, 17 years ago. And between 2008 and now, the technology has taken off in a monumental way. And we are not even at that 2008 level. And of course, we have constitutions, and under constitutions, there are fundamental rights. And the issue of being able to do certain things, even as police officers, without the necessary control mechanisms in place, without the protection of rights, you need to have appropriate legislation in place for that. One of the areas, in fact, let me just deal with a suite of legislation. There were about 6 different bits. You had the Electronic Transactions Act, for example, that would enable electronic signatures to be validated for transactions. So you have contracts signed online, as we know it. We have to send by way of FedEx or otherwise. Somebody has to go to a notary public and send back the document under the Electronic Transactions Act. There would be mechanisms in place to validate signatures and to ensure that you can get business taking place in a much more efficient and timely manner by being able to deal with these issues on electronic platforms. We had also, very critical, the Electronic Evidence Act. Some countries have adopted it. What I can say in terms of Grenada, what Grenada has enacted, we had the Electronic Crimes Act that came into force first in 2013, I believe September 2013. We had the Electronic Crimes Act, and the Electronic Crimes Act created a whole new set of offenses, criminal offenses under the Electronic Crimes Act. And it is something that, in programs like these, people need to be educated, sensitized, informed, because it happens that under the Electronic Crimes Act, probably barring the Drugs Act, where you have very significant sums, fines and jail sentences under the Drug Abuse and Prevention Act. I think the Electronic Crimes Act contains the single largest penalties for offenses. In fact, the lowest offense in the under the Electronic Crimes Act, you have about $5,000. That's the lowest. But the general range is between $100,000 and over $300,000 under the Electronic Crimes Act. And in fact, there is the child pornography offenses, and that probably attracts the largest, the single largest penalty. You have, I believe, it's $300,000 maximum, and you have 3 years imprisonment. And for a second offense, I think it increases up to 20 years or thereabout in prison. So you have significant, very significant fines under that act. The majority of our criminal offenses usually fall under the criminal code. you have a range of sentences, and you have them in different acts. For example, you have a Firearms Act that deals with issues concerning firearms. You have a Drug Prevention Act, separate acts, standalone acts, under which people can be charged. But the criminal code has the range, the diversity of criminal offenses. This, and of course, they don't relate to electronic offenses. But now we have an Electronic Crimes Act, which is a dedicated act for electronic crimes. And just to identify some of them, you have identity theft. Inspector touched on some of these issues broadly. But you have identity theft, you have electronic forgery, you have electronic fraud, violation of privacy is a key one, and probably we can look at that because it's a common one where people's privacy is violated, and it has significant consequential issues when it comes to violation of privacy. And you have, for example, young girls, school children. You have, taking photos, naked photographs. There's no intention for these photographs to go beyond the intended purpose of when it was taken in the privacy of a room or whatever. A relationship breaks up, and then somebody decides as a part of revenge that they'll circulate the photographs all over the internet. And, you have had issues where there have been attempted suicides in some places. So they have, quite apart from the inherent criminal penalties, they have these other consequences associated with it. You have child pornography. You have even, what has been styled electronic terrorism, electronic stalking. I believe that one, there was one of them removed by an amendment as far as Grenada is concerned, but you have several of these in other countries.
Section 6.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Well, section
Section
6.
6.
630 that
Yes.
I think comes up there.
Yes, they because there were certain issues with Section 6. In fact, I spoke a lot on that issue when the bill initially came out.
But that leaves it was repealed. But that, well, certainly some people have a view, I can understand the view, that has left a gap in the law.
Mm-hmm.
In that it was not,
what it really called for is a simple amendment. I don't think there was a need to repeal.
There was a repeal.
The entire section was repealed. I don't think there was a need to repeal the entire section because there are other acts, legislation that were already styled and ahead of Grenada that ensured that the section met the constitutional test. Because what you want when you are passing legislation, you want to ensure that the legislation is in conformity with the Constitution, and that the rights, the fundamental rights that are granted under the Constitution can be protected, and these laws are not abused in a way that can find people ended up being arrested and charged for criminal offenses and go through the stress of it. So that's why. But the entire section, now that you say it, the entire section, is it the entire section that was repealed?
Yes, it was
because the
repealed.
recommendation then was to amend it accordingly, because it was too vague and overbroad and
Yeah.
could have led to abuse.
And that I understand was the fear with regard to that. So the amendment actually says that uh, it amends section 6, 6, 25 are hereby repealed. And section 6 was basically dealt with sending offensive messages to communication services. Section 16 dealt with a person shall not knowingly or without lawful excuse or justification intimidate, coerce, insult, and annoy another person using an electronic system. And section
And that one
25, I
is
think
electronic stalking, I think.
yeah, stalking.
was
Yeah.
the stalking.
That's the same as, yes.
And
Yes.
section 25 gave the police the power to arrest without a warrant in those circumstances.
Right.
But
Yes.
some people have argued, and I think there is merit in that the repeal has left a gap in the law. And I guess
Yes.
what you're saying is what was necessary was an amendment so as to bring it in conformity with the Constitution. Also, of
Yes.
course,
If I may come in here.
Oh, sorry, yes, go ahead.
Yes, St. Kitts, which had the same legislation, also amended that section 6, and it is still within the Electronic Crimes Act.
Yeah, amended
Yes,
it.
I think
Okay.
St. Kitts
Yes.
is the example.
So
St.
we
Kitts
repealed it.
amended, because as you would imagine, these provisions attracted much debate,
Yes.
Electronic crimes, because you have the whole issue of the fundamental right to freedom of expression, and that the whole balance there. And I think what is always missing from those discussions at particular levels, I had opportunity only this week gone at a particular conference to make the point that, the public is usually left out in the very early stages of these discussions, and the opportunity for public education. So you could imagine, and that's why it stays so long in the system before it's eventually passed, because the technocrats discuss it up there. There's an extended period of discussion, and then when it's introduced now, civil society and other organizations start to kick up about it, and the whole process is further delayed. And the one, of course, that inspector would like, and the public would not be too disposed of, and that came out of the suite of legislation from the 2008 HIPCA project, is the Interception of Communications Act. That act has been introduced in a few Caribbean territories. I believe Trinidad is one. There was a lot of public debate about it. We do not have it in Grenada, the Interception of Communications Act, because a lot of these things collide with, again, apart from freedom of expression, is the right to privacy. So you have
you're
to
saying
find
you're saying that
balance.
that was not passed in Grenada, KC?
No, I don't think it was passed in Grenada. There was the bill, but to the best of my knowledge, the Interception of Communications Act does not form. What I know, the Data Protection Act was eventually passed in 2023, I believe. It's Act 1 of 2023. And you
But
had
it's not. It is not yet enforced.
No. Which one? Which one is not
The
yet
data
enforced?
Data protection did not
is
come
not
into
yet
force.
enforced.
Yeah, well, it was assented to, but it's and that was in 2023. there was not a date for bringing it into effect.
No, I think the minister has to bring it into by order.
Right. So, but those are the two out of the 6 possible bits of legislation. So what we don't have is the Interception of Communications Act. Am I correct on that, Inspector?
Correct.
If there's anybody
Yes,
that
that
will
one.
know, that is you.
That is correct. We do not
I
have
hope
that
I'm
one.
not saying anything that grants more, but I know that one we don't have the Electronic Transactions Act. Neither do we have the Electronic Evidence Act as effective pieces of legislation right now. To the best of my information. But the point I'm making, out of all of this, it was recognized with the rapid growth of technology and the movement of technology. Then you have increasing need, for example, for data protection. You have issues with copyright. You have issues. Now people give speeches, write letters. In fact, a colleague was even saying just on the weekend that AI has done an entire play for him, a play that AI has done once you know how to enter the features. That is, that is what the power of the internet. So we have had now, as a result of all of this AI, you have had cases in the United Kingdom, in the United States, and more recently in the Caribbean, where you have in court, people using legal authority that does not exist. And recently, over the last 3 months, you had a case in Trinidad where people generated using AI and being faithful, I suppose, and confident that AI would produce the results and there would be genuine results. The judge in the Trinidad case, who gave a presentation on this issue in the last week, in Trinidad, there was a conference organized by the Caribbean Court of Justice. And he was saying that, listen, when he received those submissions, because he was familiar with a particular area of the law, he just found certain things looking strange and didn't add up. So that triggered him to do some further investigation and realize that those were fake cases, basically. Now, had he not been so astute, had he not been so sharp, then he would have ruled, believing that, listen, the lawyers who placed these submissions before the court did their proper research. And these were genuine cases which he can now cite as authority. And then other people might cite him as authority, and you have a whole line of fake cases becoming authority. And you had in the United States recently. Sorry? Yeah, you had in the United States recently where I believe it's a federal judge admitted that he wrote a judgment, generated an entire judgment using AI. And so these issues are now the subject of disciplinary proceedings in these different places. But it just shows, again, that the unchecked use and power of the internet and what is possible can lead to really very adverse consequences for so many people. And that's why it's important that one should have the proper legislation in place to ensure that people are not fooled into into doing certain things that ought not to be done. I noticed that Jervis DaBreo is on. And I'm sure he's hearing. At the beginning of the session, he may not have heard me, but I was just referring
I'm
to.
trying to actually contact him because I saw he appeared. So I don't know what is happening because
But he's not on?
Are you able to hear me? And I switch off the
yes.
Bluetooth. Turn off the Bluetooth.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
so you're actually
He's on.
there now.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we hearing you.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we are hearing you.
You're hearing me?
Loud and clear.
Yes.
Yes. So
Loud and
I've
clear.
been on. I have been on since you guys got started. I'm still on the road. But there are a few things I want to add to the conversation.
Yes.
I think it's been good so far. When you spoke about of the problems we've been facing here, and especially with us focusing now within the next few days on technology-enabled crimes against women and girls, is the use of stalkerware. Now, these are malicious programs that are installed on devices to track people's whereabouts, to see who they call and what messages they send and so forth. And this has been a problem within our space. Most of the instances coming into the national CSOT have involved women being on the receiving end of that. So this is something I just want the public to be aware of. And there are things you could look for. I mean, your device, the battery running down faster than normal, people able to tell you what you said and what you did and they were not there. It means it's possible you may be on the receiving end of that. As far as the face of cybercrime, Inspector Noel mentioned that we now have to deal as a service. It's not just cybercrime as a service. It's the fact that it has overtaken the drug trade. You put all the illicit drugs together, and the money that is now made through cybercrimes, technology-enabled crimes, it has surpassed that. So you have these big drug cartels now pivoting into the cyber realm. And when you look at the amount of money being moved through cyber crimes, if it was a landmass, it would be the third. It would be behind the US #1, China #2, and cybercrime. So these bad actors, they are well motivated, they are well funded, and I think that is the challenge that we face, whether it is law enforcement or those funded. They're well motivated, and so this is why it is important for everyone participating in the digital world, and it's difficult to not participate, to at least be aware of what is happening and how you can protect yourself. When you spoke about monies lost through the financial institutions, we've had a couple cases here, and I want to bring to the fore this particular instance where an account was compromised, and Inspector Noel spoke about the business email compromise. So this small business, their email was compromised, and the cyber criminal, then used that email account to reach out to the financial institution here and gave instructions for a large sum of money to be transferred. Now, the issue was the customer never had any arrangement with the financial institution for it to accept any instruction via email. But instead of verifying the instruction with the customer, the financial institution went ahead and transferred the money. We went back and forth on it. That's the National CSOT FIU. And we agreed that the financial institution, they were responsible, they were negligent because they had no authority to move the money. But I don't want us to think, as was pointed out previously in the discussions, that every time money is lost and it involves a financial institution, they are to be blamed. Because in reality, we need to stay on top of our business. If the financial institution offers online banking, this is something that you need to monitor. You do not just disregard the notification, you pay attention to it. Because as Noel pointed, the bad actors, they're not going to come after $5,000 in the first instance. They'll try for $1.00. And if they get through, then they may increase it. If they're able to access your financial report, all right, or your financial statement, maybe you received that through the email and the email was compromised, they would know, hey, there is there's $100,000 there, and it gives them an idea as to how much they can get from it. So that is my bit on that. And finally, just to get up to speed in terms of the law, you mentioned the gap that exists with the repealing of Section 6, and I think all Grenadians who have been on the receiving end of the maliciousness that is now so common and prevalent on social media, they will agree that Section 6 need to be brought back in some way, some form of it is needed at this time. Because at the rate we're going, you have relationships being destroyed because of the maliciousness. You have young people, students and young adults being affected, again, because of what is going on. And it is going unchecked. Why? Because the law is not there to deal with those who do not know how to be responsible with the use of technology. So I think that brings me up to speed in terms of what is going on. Any questions? I'm here.
Yes, great. Just two things out of this, or three things in fact. One, I think the example he gave with the financial institution, I think that's the distinction with the case out of England. In the case out of England, my understanding is what happened is that the person was tricked and they actually gave the bank instructions to move the money. And the case was more or less that the bank should have protected against being tricked. But in this case, as Jervis pointed out, the person didn't give any instructions to the bank. They had no arrangement to move monies by way of email or whatever it is. And the bank went ahead and did it. I think there is a case that is probably filed a few months ago in the OECS where that point came up. The second point though, KC, I'm seeing here that there is an act. I'm seeing the Inception of Communications Act has been Act 22.
Interception.
Yes.
Interception?
Interception of Communication Act has been Act number 22 of 2013.
At the same time, yeah.
And it was actually passed
It was assented to?
It was actually passed in the House on the 2nd of August 2013, then passed in the Senate 21st of August 2013, and it was assented to, let me see when, an act being enacted at the Queen with the advice and consent of the Senate and the House of Representatives by the authority of the same as follows. I assent, yes, was assented to. 23rd of September 2013, it was assented to.
Well, that's the same date as the Electronic Crimes Act.
Okay.
The Electronic Crimes Act was assented to. There's one, or the Data Protection Act. The Data Protection Act, I think, is Act 1. I think it's the Electronic Crimes Act. Let me see.
Because
it will be the same date.
In 2013, yes.
Yeah, it's Act 23 of 2013. So what is meant, so there would have been discussions on the Electronic Crimes Act.
That was the focus.
Yeah, focus, and probably that one was lost, but it's not in effect, is it?
I think it is. It doesn't say anything about the effect, the community effect being postponed.
Is there a date for the community effect?
This have been cited as and shall come into force on the date fixed by the minister by order published in the Gazette. So it's possible it's not in effect as yet.
But I say if there's anybody who would know is the inspector, you know.
Yeah, but
That,
it
to
was
my
passed.
knowledge, it has not come into effect.
It's not in effect as
No.
yet.
No.
Because you would hardly have a, well, I'm just saying that it's not that it's not possible. But an act as that is the kind of act that cannot be passed just overnight without any discussion at all. It
But it was
impacts
passed.
the broadest cross section of society, and it also will create its own tensions, more than things like the Electronic Transactions Act and the Electronic Evidence Act. Those are fairly non-controversial, but that is the most controversial of the 6 acts proposed under the IPCA project. So I suppose the fact that it has not been, it is not in effect, even though passed in Parliament then, and I'm surprised an act as this in Trinidad it attracted wide debate.
Yeah.
Wide debate, even when it was being discussed among the technocrats. It attracted wide debate and division. So
let me just look at a few practical things. Oh, the third point I wanted to make with regard to the AI. AI actually has a warning that all information you use from AI must be validated. So that's actually when suddenly chat GPT-5, that's actually a warning that they give. You must validate the information that you use. So I just need to say that. So the use of it without validation is a clear violation of the use. And I guess that is being done because it is recognized that AI is still in its infancy stage, notwithstanding how widespread it is. And being in its infancy stage, it is prone to all of these errors. But just for a few practical things, right?
I think
But just
Sorry, go ahead.
if I should add here, it does explicitly state that AI can make mistakes, and not that it just makes mistake, but that it is fed with information from users or data producers,
Nicely.
and of course that information can be misinformation as well.
Exactly.
As the example that Casey was given, where the fake cases were used in that discussion. Fake information is promoted a lot on the internet, and while it may sound like it is real, it is to hype activities, and of course, at the end of it, misinformation would cause damaging effects to the outcome of wherever it is utilized. And so, in that case, AI in itself, and someone made the comment here, what happened to persons who are less tech savvy? We shouldn't be too dependent on the technology without verifying it, especially the sources of the information. I just wanted to add that here.
Yes, very, very important.
Yeah. And whether it's in its infancy stage or otherwise, I suspect it will always have to be verified,
Of course.
because even right now, and I have been part of sessions where exercises have been conducted to distinguish between the real and the AI.
Mhm.
And you can hardly tell the difference.
You can
That's
hardly tell.
again the frightening part of the reality. And what is happening now with courts in different parts of the world, they are developing policies for the use of AI. You actually have regulations in place for the use of AI, and I expect the Eastern Caribbean Court to follow suit sooner rather than later. Because, for example, that issue of data protection is so critical in a world of identity theft, where people could basically steal your identity and can travel, get a passport, with your identity. Technology allows all of these things to happen, and that's why it's so important to protect data, because a Data Protection Act is critical to protect the personal information. And I think in the Grenada Act, also corporate information, because, for example, lawyers have a duty of confidentiality. And if you have all these things stored in the cloud, and then somebody then gets hold of that information with the files of people. You know, you had the Panama Papers case, where people then, because it's on the internet, everybody's business then gets on the internet, the private confidential information. And therefore, lawyers have a duty, a particular duty, because there is what you call legal professional privilege and confidentiality, to protect that confidentiality. So when you're having stuff being stored online and the whole issue of access, then that's a liability question that you have to immediately think about. Medical doctors, no. Because I have met people in Grenada now who consult with doctors in India and these different places online. Your personal doctor resides thousands of miles away in India. And the whole question of records again, the duty of confidentiality, and the importance of ensuring that your medical records are not compromised. So all of this, even companies, whether it's electricity, telephone, as the case may be, that have your data. The whole idea is that data should only be used for its intended purpose. Because if you go
That's what
beyond that,
the Data Protection Act is
that's what
geared
the
towards
Data
that, but
Protection Act is all about.
that too is not enforced as yet.
Right.
So
Yeah.
let me just do a few
Not as
things.
yet, but it gives opportunity for companies, businesses especially, to get in line so that person's data is protected. Remember, I mentioned earlier that data is actually valuable as an asset,
Yep.
and therefore the loss of breach of that data is the responsibility of
So I
the
just
company.
want to, before we move on, I just want to recognize the sponsors of the program.
Yes, we go ahead.
Jail Professional Solutions Inc., Jim FM, carrying this program on FM radio out of Canada, and Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, G-Town. Casey, I just want to raise a few practical matters which I've been asked to raise. You have situations where the internet, social media, Facebook, whichever one, you have all of these different platforms. Sometimes you have lots of defamatory stuff being peddled. What is the situation where somebody pass it on in their WhatsApp, spread it in a WhatsApp group and it goes viral, or it may have been viral already and they just keep spreading like wildfire. In those circumstances, is one liable if you spread it in that way, or you pass it on in that way?
Yes. And that's an important question. And I should probably say there is the civil aspect of things, and there is the criminal aspect of things. And here, publication. So, for example, the Electronic Crimes Act captures, identifies, creates most of the electronic, what you can term electronic offenses. The same violation of privacy, child pornography, electronic forgery, electronic fraud, etc. Those are created as criminal offenses, where you are liable to imprisonment for publishing certain information or stealing certain information. And then you have the traditional civil liability for publication. It does not necessarily change what the base principles of libel are, that the claimant has to establish that there were defamatory words published. There must be publication, which is essential for libel. So for slander, they can defame you if they're just two people having a conversation. You can't have defamation. There must be publication there. And the significance of the internet, the social media platforms, is really this. That the same principles of libel apply, but now it offers a broader scope, because for defamation you have the spoken word and you have the written word. Libel usually addresses the written word, slander the spoken word. But the audience that has been introduced by the internet is now a global audience, a potentially global audience. And what that essentially means is that the wider the publication, the greater the damages for defamation. So, for example, if you have a newspaper that is local based, and it libels someone, because the audience is local, the audience is narrower, the damages that would be awarded by a court would be significantly less to the damages that are awarded if that same libel is exposed to the world. And that is where the difference lies. So people who spread defamatory material, because publication in libel, unlike a criminal offense, in a criminal offense you have to establish what is referred to as the actus reus and the mens rea, meaning actus reus being the act itself was done. So let's say it's a stabbing, that somebody stabbed somebody, and that the mens rea, which is the intention to do the harm. And in criminal law, you have to establish both. In civil law, however, with the libel, it's not based on intention. Publication is publication, whether you intended to do so or not. It might affect at the end of the day.
Does it make a difference given that you are not the originator. You did not create the
No, it does not.
defamatory stuff. Only the pass it on.
It makes a difference, possibly in the award of damages. That you did it, but there is no necessarily intention. Because you can have, for example, where there is an intention to spread defamatory matter, it can be elevated. The damages can be elevated to aggravated damages. In other words, over and above the damages claim, over and above that, you can claim another head called aggravated damages. And in libel, for example, which is what is described as I say, actionable per se. All you have to do is to prove the libel, and you're entitled to damages. You don't have to prove that your reputation was injured necessarily. All you have to prove is a libel. However, if
I'm
you
looking at it
prove,
from the standpoint of the person who is using the technology. They get a message on their WhatsApp, they pass it on to a group. We say that person could be liable for defamation.
Yes, that
even
person could
though
be
it did
liable.
not originate from them.
Precisely. Because why? Because there is the element in defamation of publication. That publication, you basically publish defamatory words. You would have passed it on. You would have passed it on. Where the difference? So it doesn't make a difference as far as liability. That you innocently pass on that information. No, normally
you have spread it.
You're right. You have to spread it. No, normally people don't go after the quote unquote innocent one. People will go after the principal one, because if you had to go after the innocent one, you might have to swallow a few thousand people. Well, then because people normally just pass these things on innocently, there. So normally, what you go, sorry.
The second issue is this. Before we go to the chat, you have a conversation with someone, and unknown to you, the person tapes the conversation. A. And then maybe B, trying to use the conversation in an adverse way against you. What's the situation there?
Well, first of all, as a starting point, it's improper. It is improper. In the field of criminal law, as the inspector will tell you, there's a principle that is different in the United States. They call it the fruit of the poison tree. If it's illegally obtained, then it is inadmissible as evidence. In our jurisdiction, it matters not how it's obtained.
I'm not talking about the criminal process. I'm talking about somebody.
Right.
I'm talking about outside of
but I'm making the distinction. In the criminal process. That evidence may be admissible. In the civil process, however, that evidence that one can build a strong case to for the inadmissibility of that.
So I'm not even looking at it that way. I'm asking the person who did that, is that an actionable wrong? They unknown to you, they take confidential information, a confidential conversation. Yeah? And then, so A, is the taping of it without your consent and knowledge an actionable wrong? B,
an actionable civil wrong, right? Yes. Yeah. I know the jury, and again, it depends on who do the taping, because there's the issue, for example, if agents of the state If the agents of the state does it, it can give rise to certain constitutional issues. If it's done by a civil person, there are two schools of thought. There are two schools of thought. If it's just taped, and there is nothing, is the issue simply is that one did not get permission to tape. But it does not contain necessarily anything damaging. Just the fact of taping it, while improper, may not give rise to an actionable wrong, in my view. Because then what an actionable wrong has to must fall within a legal definition of the law. So an actionable wrong is like a tort. It falls under the law of tort. So for example, you have nuisance, actionable wrong, defamation, actionable wrongs, negligence, actionable wrongs, and it therefore has to fit in with some action where you can sue simply for taping and being taped. In my view,
I guess if the
I
person
will
try
say,
if they try to use the information, then that may occasion actionable wrong.
right, and that may, from a civil standpoint,
Yeah.
from a civil standpoint, depending on the content of the information,
Yes.
it may be a criminal, it may constitute a criminal offense.
Depending on
And
the
two, from
information.
a civil standpoint, it may go to the objection to the admissibility of that evidence, which you took without the permission of the person. Because, for example, violation of privacy, and I think that is an important one to examine under, I think it's Section 10 of the Electronic Crimes Act. And you can draw a simple parallel with that section, violation of privacy. I'm just trying to pull it up here. Yes. So it says, violation of privacy, a person who knowingly or without lawful excuse or justification captures, publishes, or transmits the image of a private area of a person without his or her consent, under circumstances violating the privacy of that person, commits an offense, and is liable on summary conviction. And that's the thing about the Act 2. Most of the offenses are summary. I think there are one or two indictable offenses, and what summary offenses mean, it means that the offense is triable in the magistrate's court. And you're liable there to a fine not exceeding $200,000 or to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 3 years or both. And I'm using that as a parallel. So, for example, this person captured the image of another, either unknowing to that person or without the consent of that person. Similarly, in the example you use, somebody actually tapes an individual unknowing that that person is being taped and without the consent of that person. Okay. In this case, in the Section 10, there is a certain qualification, because what it says is if you violate the privacy of that person, and what therefore it means by saying captures, publishes, or transmits. It says, for the purposes of the section, transmit means to electronically send a visual image with the intent that it be viewed by a person or persons. Capture, with respect to an image, means to videotape, to photograph, to film, or record by any means. Private area means the naked or undergarment undergarment, clad genitals, pubic area, buttocks, or female breast. Publishes means reproduction. So there may be some common law offense that one can find because in a sense it's a violation of privacy. If you are speaking to somebody, that person then tapes you. You may be saying to that person things that you would not ordinarily say. If you know you are being taped.
Most likely, maybe a breach of confidence if they try to then use it adversely to you or spread it to other people. I think there's a
And
case
that
of
would
that.
be under the common law.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want us to look at some comments at the chat and respond to them before we go to Mr. DaBreo to talk about the positive side, the positive use of IT and the opportunities offered. JMFM asks, what measures can a company take to protect their data? I think Inspector, you answered that one, correct? Backup.
Yes, we touched on it. Yes, we touched on having a backup plan, contingency plan.
Don't pay the kidnappers. And even if you get back your information, don't use it. Because it can still be fake, correct?
Well, if I may, it is not as clear cut as don't pay the criminals. The advice is don't pay, but it is left up to the company to decide whether they want to roll the dice or not. If you do not have a backup, you have no way of rebuilding your system, then you may be tempted to actually pay the ransom demand, hoping that the criminals are going to hold up to their end. The problem is it begs, do you trust someone who has invaded your space without your permission? So I don't want people thinking, hey, it's a case where you should never pay. It is left up to the company after considering all the options to decide whether or not. But understand, when you pay the ransom, you're actually helping to build that criminal organization. And there is no guarantee you're actually going to get through with the recovery. There is no guarantee you will not be hit a second time, as Inspector Noel pointed out.
The second one, what are some of the safeguards you would suggest for people to deal with scammers, who continue to scam people who are less IT savvy?
Nothing beats awareness. Nothing beats awareness. The reality is, most of the scams and the schemes we've been seeing within the past 3-4 years here in Grenada, they've all had some level of social engineering to them. And social engineering is really the manipulating of the human being, hacking the human being, whether it is greed or desire for love, or need for self-gratification, or wanting to win things, get rich quick, whatever the case is. So once people are made aware of how some of these attacks work, then I think that is number one. Because you look at what has been happening internationally. There are companies who have invested tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars into their IT infrastructure, into their security systems. And at the end of the day, it just takes one human being clicking on a link to create problems. So people need to be aware of what is going on, especially for the services that they use. You are a WhatsApp user, the WhatsApp takeover, it has been a thing for the past 3 years, and even now it is ongoing here in Grenada. We've seen a spike again. And it's as simple as you just enabling two-factor authentication, two-step verification, and remembering you should never share any code you receive with anybody. Qua Bank, they put out a warning, I think it was yesterday or day before, because there are these malicious text messages going around telling people that their accounts have been debited, and in order for them to verify whether or not that actually happened, what have you, click a link. Again, you have online banking. There is no reason to click on any link in any message you receive when you have your online banking. You go to the online banking app and see if there is any action there. Republic Bank, they issued a notice, I think it was on Thursday, letting people know again that listen, the bank is never going to reach out to you asking you for your PIN or your password. Now, you would think that at this stage, these are things people should know, because if you use the service, many of the service providers, they send these little things out. As a matter of fact, WhatsApp has a WhatsApp official chat in everybody's chat list where they send out these things. I think we've gotten to the point now where people have to take responsibility for their actions or inactions, and understand that you saying, hey, well, this happened and now I need to get the bank to give me back my money. In a lot of cases, people are doing stupidness. Cyber Monday happens tomorrow. I imagine the people who were not able to capitalize on Good Friday may be shopping
Black Friday.
on Black Friday, right? So tomorrow you're going to see a lot of promotions popping up on social media. On your Facebook feed, you're going to find that. And
what percentage is likely to be scams?
Yes, Amazon warned last week that there are several fake Amazon sites out there right now. So you're on Facebook, you see these sponsored posts saying Amazon is giving away whatever and what. Listen, if there is any level of urgency to it, and you needing to click no, that is one instance where you should not click no. Just step back. So people just need to be aware of it, and I think too many people want to leave light and weigh heavy, and that is what the criminals are capitalizing on.
Yes.
You don't want to put it on if you want to reap the rewards.
Just to add here, just before we leave off that point as well, a lot of the recently Amazon would have faced some fines for prompting persons to accept Prime, and the judgment, has been passed, and persons who aren't even Prime customers or weren't Prime customers would receive these messages sending them to a site to claim. And also there's one in the name of judgment against Donald Trump as well, President Trump, sending persons to claim, but you were never part of any of those cases. And therefore, why would you then attempt to claim something that you weren't a part of? And it is basically the necessity to investigate the information that is sent to you. You have the ability to look at it, look at where it's coming from, assess whether you have been part of it, and to be able to protect yourself. So it's not about being tech savvy, but about being able to analyze information before you actually act on it.
Be prudent in terms of handling your business.
Yes,
and if I may just add one last thing on that, because when the National CSIRT was launched in May of 2022, it was for this very purpose, The idea was to give people unsure of whether something is legit or not, a place where they can send it, have it checked, without it having any cost implications to them. And so my thing is, if you see something and you're unsure, just send it to the National CSIRT. You can send it via WhatsApp, Telegram, email, Facebook, send it, and you are going to get a response. What I have been seeing quite a bit of in recent times is people would find these companies, heaven knows where they find it, and they would send the money for a vehicle that they are never going to receive. And 6 months later, they reach out saying, hey, I sent the money. Can you check to see if this site is legit? This is madness. Now, I'm not going to say the cat before the horse, because the horse is actually in the back. So I'm not going to say that. But it's a case where in Grenada, unlike many of the other Caribbean islands, there is a body set up to do that assessment for you, to walk you through the process. You just need to reach out, and we're going to do it for you. There are times when it may take a day or two. Sometimes we do miss one or two things, and especially for the people who would send things to the National CSIRT, and then they have disappearing messages turned on. That is very stupid. And I'm not going to apologize for it. Very, very stupid. In that you send something to get it checked and you send it tonight, Sunday, and you have 24-hour disappearing message turned on. Now, it is possible that that may not actually get action until Tuesday. And when we check the message, there is nothing there because you had disappearing messages turned on. That right there is just, it is misuse of the feature, right? So people reaching out to the National CISA, just check that, because I've had to deal with a few cases like that, and maybe a week or two later, somebody reach out saying, hey, I did not get a response. And my response to them is there is nothing to respond to because you had your message disappear before we got to action. But you can reach out.
Okay, so the next one, you kind of addressed it. People who send money to buy vehicles overseas and are not able to respond. Subsequently, how can this be handled? I guess they send their money, the point you make, then nothing happened. So I guess you will say before you send the money, they should check you. They should check the national.
Yeah. So if you send the money, you're not getting it back. I returned from a study tour in the EU, European Union, and we visited all the major players. So Europol, Eurojust, and all these different companies. And that is one of the things I asked. What are the likelihood of people getting back their money? And they were very clear. Listen, within your space, your little island, chances of you getting back the money is close to zero, right? People who are looking to import vehicles from Japan, unless you're using companies that are tried and tested, my advice is go to the official registry and pick a company from there. So you have the Japanese Used Motor Vehicle Association, JUMVEA, JUMVEA.or.jp. That is where you go. JUMVEA.or.jp. You check the members. Now, any of the members there, you know, if you purchase a vehicle from them, you're going to get it. The issue I have been seeing from the National CISA is people are reached out to either on Facebook or Telegram, on WhatsApp, saying, hey, we have these vehicles, and the prices are outrageous. And people see a deal, as Ruggles pointed out earlier, and common sense and their gut feeling are just tossed aside. So if you send it, you're not getting back the money. The other thing too is oftentimes it takes a few months before someone realizes they've been had. So they send the money and the vehicle is supposed to get here in March. Nothing, they haven't heard anything. It's now August, September. And by that time, the money is long gone. So double check. You could use JUMVEA. That is the safest way. But ask somebody. You can ask us. You can also reach out to the FIU. I know they have been doing quite a bit of work in terms of helping people assess some of these sites. I'm not going to say bog down the digital forensic unit, although I know Inspector Noel and her team, they are more than capable because they are the right hand to the National CISA.
Okay, Dwayne Gill. Question. If justice is to be more than a beautiful word in the Constitution, what practical changes do you believe are necessary? Whether police resources, regional cooperation, or public education so that victims of cybercrime in small states like Grenada are not left feeling powerless, voiceless, and financially stranded. I guess that there's a program for itself.
It is.
Yeah.
There's
But
a lot
the
in there.
critical element. Sorry, go ahead, Inspector.
Yes, I was saying there's a lot in there, but definitely, and the forums like these can help in that situation where persons are educated in terms of what are the threats we are facing, what are the crimes that we are dealing with, and where changes have to be made, whether it's in legal frameworks, that can happen with the voice of the public. Right. In terms of the cooperation, there are regional and international cooperation for law enforcement in terms of investigation. As far as the European Union as Mr. DaBreo had mentioned, the police participates with Europol, Eurojust, and also Interpol. We also have the RSS and the CARICOM Impacts, which are bodies that assist in law enforcement initiatives when it comes to cyber and other crimes. In terms of in a practical sense, we always encourage persons to timeliness is a big factor in terms of cybercrime. The time you take to report makes a big difference in how much we can actually do with that report. And the finance, especially, is important, but also in terms of transferring of information when we're um, trying to gather the evidence, time is critical. And even though, yes, we would have technology in place as well to be able to gather the evidence, reporting makes a big difference. And not that you said that persons are left powerless and voiceless. One of the initiatives that the CID and through the SBU has been bringing forward is that of reporting of non-consensual image sharing, and that relates specifically to section 10 and 12 as it relates to child pornography and violation of privacy. So there are two sites that we always encourage persons to visit, and this is the stopncii.org and takeitdown.org, which gives victims, whether you are under 18 or over 18, the ability to report the images that are used against you. Say, for instance, published once it is captured and you have access to it, or even when you make that film or image yourself and sending it to someone else, you have the ability to be able to stop the spread and the widespread, as Casey would have mentioned, because once it gets on the internet, you cannot take it back, and you do not know how far it's going to reach. You do not know how long it's going to remain out there. So we do empower persons to take action in that light, and of course, programs like these and the CSIRT initiative helps persons to be able to make wiser actions when they're online.
Yes, and Fiona Hines Lafond says that there's a duty of confidence and equity. He referenced a criminal case and also a case with the cricketer Lyndon Simmons in Trinidad, in which Justice Sipasad held him liable for breach of confidence when he disclosed some private personal photos with an ex-girlfriend.
Yes. Yes, that
Yes,
one involves
so-
the sharing of private photos.
Yes.
Non-consensual.
Non-consensual, that's what it is. I think they fell out and then he decided to show his teammates the photos. I think that's what's the story meant. So, Jarvis, I don't want us to leave with the impression that it's all gloom and doom with the internet and the technology. It's all about crime and so. What positive positive uses are available with the technology? For example, I know we have a lot of people getting into businesses online and so on. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Listen, the amount of opportunities that technology has brought our way, it's crazy, right? Noel spoke about what happened during COVID-19 and online learning. Now you have many persons actually being able to further their studies, whether it's through official, universities, those that exist in brick and mortar form, Coursera, these online courses. And so furthering your studies now, you don't need to leave the country. Small businesses no longer need to hurt their head about finding money to advertise in the newspaper or on the radio. You have the whole internet there. Your Instagram, your Facebook pages, profiles allow you to market to a wider audience. And then you have people within the creative industry, the young people who want to sing and produce music and so forth. The technology has done quite a bit when it comes to that. Remote work. I have friends and family members who, when they come to Grenada, they are able to stay here and they continue working. And you have people who are here who are working for companies far from here, getting paid in currency that is way more than the EC dollar. Again, that is because of the technology. We talk about AI, and yes, hallucination is a serious problem. Yes, fraud, GPT, and all these bad elements, they do exist. But you look at what it has done for the people who use the tool appropriately. The child who is struggling, trying to understand how you add improper fractions, and you go to YouTube and you have a question, you can't ask YouTube. But you can go to ChatGPT, you can go to Gemini, you could go to Perplexity and ask it to explain it to you over and over and over. It's not going to get tired. It is going to explain it. There are people who have had a hard time finding information online. AI is able to bring all of that together. Yes, you still need to verify, but now you don't need to hurt your head too much about searching. Even when it comes to projects and so forth, the technology is able to help you. It is not supposed to do the work for you. It is supposed to enhance it. It is supposed to make you more efficient, more effective. But let me say that if the brain is not engaged, no AI is going to really help you, because at some point you may be able to pass the work off, but there would be no competence. All right. And people would realize that there is a huge disparity between what you present and what you're able to actually do. 20 years ago, we had no definition for a YouTuber or TikToker, but you have people around the world who have become millionaires as a result of that. You have artists, musical artists, who have had serious trouble just trying to get airplay, but now they can put their music online, they can get it on the streaming services and so forth, and even make money from these services while they are here, something that, was unheard of years ago. So there are many possibilities that exists with the technology. My wife, for example, always wanted to make soap. The technology allowed her to do that. Between YouTube and AI, she got everything she needed, and she's able to do that. As I normally tell people, it's not about the tool. It is about the fool who would misuse the tool, or the smart person who would use it to grow, to enhance themselves, to be a better version of them. So if you're not getting the tool to work for you as it should, it's either you're using the wrong tool or you just don't know what you're doing. But there are lots of possibilities out there. It's not all bad.
Great. But it's just, I guess, we human beings, we have a way. The greatest inventions, which creates all kind of possibilities, we still have a way of misusing it. The example I always like to use is the splitting of the atom. The genius of Einstein and others led us there. With all kind of possibilities that we enjoy now, but it was used to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So we have that there, and I guess that's what we see with the internet, with all the possibilities, and so we still have people who decide to use it, as you say, the bad actors, for mischief and nefarious purposes. So we're almost there, so I just want to invite closing comments, and anyone can go first. I leave it to anyone.
Inspector.
I
leave it to Inspector.
To give your closing comments first.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was a very fruitful discussion, and I trust that our audience were very much enthused with the information that was presented here this evening. I want to leave with our audience that cybersecurity or cyber crimes are increasing. We are utilizing the internet and technology more and more, and because of that, criminals have greater opportunity to be able to use the same technology against us. cybersecurity is not or should not be a side chick. It should not be the salad or the side dish. It has to be implemented from the onset. It has to be something integrated into our daily use of technology. And with that way, it can come from making small changes in terms of the data that you provide online, the practices that you take, the information that you share, yes, with others who may not necessarily have access to it. And of course, those are the investments that you would make in terms of hardening your ability to be online safe. I'm speaking about the encryption of your data, especially for businesses, speaking about backup and restoration methods, speaking of um, communication or transactions in a secure manner via VPN, or even having your own private network to be able to conduct your businesses safely online. So it is not something that we should take lightly. And remember, as we increase in the we increase in use, there would be increase in the opportunities for us to be victims. And remember, I said it earlier, it is not if it happens, but when it happens. When it happens, are we prepared to be able to avert the impact of the threat or the attack? Are we be able to withstand and to be able to be stronger as digital citizens? And of course, from the law enforcement end, we advise you or encourage you to report when you have any form of anomalies. We have the CERT. If it is not handled by the CERT and it has a criminal element, it will definitely reach the RGPF, that you can rest assured. And of course, we will take all measures with the resources that we have locally, regionally, internationally, to be able to bring justice and to help to protect our citizens.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Well, excellent. Or Jervis, you want to go first? Go second. Go ahead. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, I was saying I'll leave the legal minds for last. So let me go. What I want to leave with the listening and viewing audiences is this: we who are at the front of the battle in this war against cyber criminals, it's a lot of work, right? I tell people, listen, if you want an easy job right now, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be something like that. The law doesn't change as often. Even in medicine, it doesn't change as often. Every morning I wake up, I have to check the cyber news, and I realize an advice we gave yesterday is no longer valid, because what was secure yesterday is no longer secure today. It is constantly changing. And it can be a bit discouraging for us who are fighting it every day. So I understand for many people how frustrating it may be when we keep throwing all these do this, don't do that, don't do that. But understand that as long as the technology is around, as Inspector Noel mentioned, the bad actors, they are going to utilize it to their end to get the money, to get our data. So you have to get up to speed and ask for help. If you're not sure about something, ask for help. Some tech people would not tell you that, but and Noel could nod the number of times I have had to call her saying, listen, I'm seeing this, what is going on here, I need some help. Or I would reach out to my counterparts in the other islands, right? I have to get help, and there are others in the field who ask for help as well. So if you're not really into it, it is okay to ask for help. And while, yes, sometimes people feel that, hey, I am gullible, I'm this, I'm that, because I fell for a scam. Hey, listen, once you're human, at some point you are going to fall for a scam once the right flavor comes your way. All right. I got scammed in 2013, and I only found out about it in 2021, I believe, in November, when I was putting together a program on social engineering. All these years, I thought it was just bad luck, right? And I've been in this thing for a while. So ask for help and understand that this is the new tourism. Cybersecurity is everybody's business.
Great.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you. Let me just say, thanks to you, Mr. Moderator, for again identifying a very important topic for discussion. In fact, this is the kind of topic that you need more discussion on. It's one of those areas that you need really expansive public education, because public education is one of the areas you can use empowering the public to fight the issue. Many times we think about the more technical aspects of it. We have discussions among ourselves, but the sharing of information with the public, empowering the public to with the necessary information. I myself learned a lot from the program this evening, and you know, I would also end where I started off, to commend Inspector Noel. I know she has grown significantly. She looks like 25 years. She stated that she was involved
Thank
in
you.
this business for 25 years. I didn't even know for so long. I knew her before she entered, and I can testify that she does fantastic work. She does fantastic work, just like many of our police officers. And, you know, we interface with them because of the nature of our system, criminal justice system. It is adversarial. We represent different parties within the system, and so it's necessarily adversarial. But adversarial does not mean the kind of hostile fights. But we do have different interests to advance and protect, and that I can say in terms of the police officers we have involved in investigation. They do great work, and are recognized, not just, maybe not recognized so much locally, but I can say many of them are recognized regionally, probably more recognized outside than within. And I also want to commend Jervis. Again, you may have missed it when I said at the start of the program that I think you do a fantastic job. You are very passionate about what you do. And I must say, only recently, I almost fell into a situation, and I call Jervis, and he said immediately, and that is to tell you, even though I am aware of it, these scammers act as so good at what they do. They can actually catch you, and we had a situation where a group chat involving over 100 and something folks was compromised. And when I realized it was compromised, it was actually somebody trying to get money, pretending to be a member of the group, to be one of the administrators, and reached out to me and others for assistance. And well, luckily I said, well, pass by me tomorrow morning. The person then passed, and a few hours later sent and say an address to send money through Western Union to send the money. So I found that strange immediately. But why this man didn't pass for the assistance and want me to go down to Western Union and go beyond my call to assist him? And then somebody else called and from the group and say this person was reaching out asking people, thinking the person was really asking people, and I knew the person. I knew that was not the modus operandi. And I got thrown out of the group actually, and so did other administrators. But the important point is that when I contacted Jervis and he asked certain questions, he advised that that we should not do what everybody would instinctively think is the right thing to do, which was to go and get some new number and these things. And he guided through the process. And I thought quite efficiently and quite quickly. And I was really impressed with that. And I can testify that they do really fantastic work. So keep it up. We need to keep up the legal education, and we also need to ensure that appropriate legislation is in place. And that's why I believe in a law reform commission that can address a lot of these issues in an ongoing way. You have a permanent law review commission. And so you know what laws to scrap, you know what laws we need to bring in, you produce papers for public discussion. And I want to make that call that we move in that direction and get familiar with the technology, because it just pervades every aspect of our lives. And just now we'll find ourselves, people who don't keep up with the technology will find themselves almost in the category of illiteracy, even though they might be wise otherwise. But if you don't know the technology, that you will be totally left out. It carries limitless opportunities, as Jervis said. But again, I want to appeal from a legal standpoint too, that you have to use it responsibly. Don't use it to defame and try to bring down people and bad talk people, because you are exposing yourself to serious action and defamation that can result, as I say, because now you're going on the World Wide Web, you can be hit with a judgment that will cripple you for the rest of your life, that take away your property and really cripple you, because that is serious business. When you're dealing with the internet, you have to use it responsibly. And of course, for those who circulate these especially nude photographs and private photographs taken, again, you are putting yourself in a place for serious criminal liability, because the Electronic Crimes Act is a special act that has the highest fines you can find in the criminal law at the level of the magistrate's court. So be responsible, and thanks once again for inviting me to this program with my distinguished colleagues.
Okay, thank you very much, KC. Thank you very much, Jervis. Thank you very much, Inspector. Thank you to all those who viewed this program. It is our pleasure, Legalize, to be bringing this program week in, week out. We just want to thank the sponsors once again: Jail Professional Solutions Inc., GMFM carried the program out of Canada FM radio, and also G-Town. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.